Hello, Stephen White, Steve White 39. Well, I finally saw it part 2, or chapter 2. I've been calling it part 2. I think technically it's called chapter 2. I watched part 1 last night. I saw it in the cinema, but I could not remember anything about it. So when it came time to see part 2, I was like, I remember one scene from that film. I should not see it because I'm going to miss a lot of stuff. So I had to find the time to watch the first film again. And the fact I forgot the first film, I think, said enough. So I watched it, and it was better than I remembered, but it had a lot of elements just missing that didn't work compared to the first film. So I went to see the second part tonight. A lot of dramas getting there, but I managed to go. I went an hour earlier than I planned to, thanks to a bunch of crap. So a bit stressed, but I got there. I tried to relax and get into it, and it was okay. It was about an hour too long. Just to make this short, basically, I don't know if it's in the book, but they made up this or included this stupid subplot where they have to, the main guy, who stayed in the town, I've forgotten his name, the black guy, he stayed in Derry and was the one who called them all back. He basically spent years researching and trying to work out what it was or how to destroy it, and he found a ancient Indian story of an alien crashing and attacking people, and that they took it on. And he went to the Indians, and he basically got from them how to go through this process and what they'd have to do. What they had to do was they had to each get something that belonged to them, that meant something to them, to give up. They had to go into his lair basically and sacrifice these objects, and that would apparently do something. Now that seems stupid to start off with, frankly. And I thought, what the hell is this? I thought it must have been in the novel or something, because they wouldn't just make something up this stupid. And I still haven't read the novel, so I hope that wasn't Stephen King's idea. I just called stupid. But so they go through this, and basically this, of course, results in them, and one of the characters points out how stupid this is, all going off separately to all find these objects, in which case they're all vulnerable. They all get attacked by it. They all get dragged into fantasies and delusions and illusions and nearly get killed, which was obvious. And it's like Nightmare on Elm Street. And they do show Nightmare on Elm Street 5 showing in the theatre a couple of times through the film, just to remind us that this is basically Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's just really, really bad because it achieves nothing. Basically, they all get back together. They go to the house. They go down the well. They go into his lair. They get this lampshade, basically with the story inscribed on it, and they put all their objects into it. And the deadlights come down and get sucked into it, and we think, oh, and well, they try to make us think that he's been destroyed, absorbed, whatever. And then, of course, they can't put the lid on, and a giant red balloon comes out, and of course he laughs at them because it's a ridiculous idea, that it was a story. And what he didn't tell the other guys was the end of the story was that they tried to do this. The Indians tried to expel him or destroy him or whatever, kill him, and basically he just sent a bunch of talons out of the object that they put their objects into, where they got this idea, I don't know, that somehow giving up something to sacrifice would make him go away. It's like they treat him like some sort of angry god or something. Like they were pulling on some sort of basic tribal ideas or something. I don't know where they got the idea from, and were killed. But he believed that only happened because they didn't believe, that they were afraid of him. So he didn't tell them that this failed the first time, and dragged them all into there to do this the second time, because he thought somehow they could make it work. It was absolutely ridiculous and insane, and I don't believe the character would be that ridiculous or insane. So that really didn't work. And what really, really didn't work about it was as soon as they got into the house, they all got separated again and sucked into their own little worlds and delusions where it came after all of them. And it's just so repetitive. The film was an hour too long. They didn't need that whole story. All they had to do was go into the house, to go after him, get separated, get all attacked, and then end up back at the end to end it the way they did. They didn't need this whole secondary story of them going out and finding all these objects that they needed to bring back to sacrifice to try and destroy him. It just wastes so much time. All they do is, it's just repetitive. They just do the same thing twice. They go through all these, get separated, go through all these experiences, then they all get back together and go into the house and do the same thing again. And then at the end, spoilers, basically they will him to disappear, basically. Basically not just not fearing him anymore, but just not believing in him and believing that he is nothing but a tiny little deflated clown with a beating heart, and they rip his heart out and crush it together and destroy him. So what is he? Is he an alien? Is he something created from fear and illusion, and with the total absence and rebellion against the fear, were they able to totally... I mean, you sort of understand what they're doing, and it sort of makes sense, but you still don't know what this being is and how he's affected by this situation, how he is destroyed. So the ending was a bit meh. I know it's very similar to the original, and he does basically take on the shape of a giant sort of centipede, sort of not centipede. What was Jiminy Cricket? It's kind of like a giant, not a spider, but because it's like 4 legs, but basically a giant spider with a clown body, and they have to fight him, and they're losing, and eventually they realize they can't physically defeat him, so they try and trick him into another space so he reduces his size so that they can attack him physically and it's a more even battle, but they can't get him out of his lair, so then they do it with their own will and just believing that he's a small clown, that he's not a monster, that he's not big, that he's not the destroyer of worlds and everything he says he is. So they do that, it works, they kill him, it ends. But they spent about an hour of extra time getting to that. They didn't need to. They could have just had each character go through a very unique, threatening fantasy that tried to lure them and destroy them, and still ended up in the same place with the same ending without doing the same thing twice with every character, or more than once with every character. It's just really repetitive, and it's just like, oh, they're off on their own again, being sucked into a fantasy because they're alone and just vulnerable, and yeah. So if you like A Nightmare on Elm Street and you like just dealing with illusion and not knowing what's real and what's fantasy, you can enjoy the film if you like being in that state. But if you're looking at it for a story resolution angle, it's tedious, frustrating, repetitive. But I always have this opinion with films. There's sort of a way they should go, and there's a way that they are. And you can enjoy them for what they are, or you can, not like them for what they should have been, could have been, or tried to do and failed, or whatever. So it's not a bad film. And if you like Nightmare on Elm Street and that sort of fantasy play, yeah, it's 2 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes you'll probably enjoy. But if you just want a story told, like the first film just told a story and ended, this one tells 2 stories over and over again and then eventually ends. Now, the other issue that I had heard about the film was that they didn't use the younger characters, it was all the adults. And the only time they used them, they used the current actors and aged them up, which didn't work. Well, none of that happened. They filmed scenes, obviously, with the actors, the younger actors, at the same time as they filmed the first part, which are flashbacks in this film, including the creation of the clubhouse and things like that. So there's a few scenes that you see with them, and some of it's just stuff repeated from the first movie, and then some is just parts that they didn't talk about or show in the first movie that they show in this that relate to parts in that, and they obviously filmed them at the same time, and there's no problem with it. It works really well. It's nice. You can watch the first film without the adults, and it's okay. But it'd be really hard to watch the second film with the adults and not have flashbacks to the kids because you know them, you're attached to them, you get the associations, you get the developments. So I'm glad they included them as much as they did. They did a good job of it. It worked. It was just the stupid Indian ritual that didn't work. That wasted time. And the other thing that didn't work was the monsters weren't scary. They were comical. The first one, the painting, the lady in the painting was kind of scary at first when she came alive and it was like literally she was the painting. But then the CGI, it's just comical. You know it's not a real person. It's not a real monster. It's not. It's just a CGI character running around and it looks like a cartoon. And the woman, the old woman, she's kind of, the actress is creepy. But once she comes out of the dark and she's like a big, tall, elongated old lady with dangling pendulous boobs, and it's not scary. It's not really funny. It's just kind of ridiculous. And she pops up again at the end because for some reason she's its daughter or something, and she's attached to Bev, and a lot of it doesn't make sense. But so yeah, so my two complaints are it didn't need to be this long. They wasted a lot of time with a secondary story that just was ridiculous in every way. And the other part was the monsters aren't scary, and it still isn't scary. It basically same thing, just vibrating, shooting at people really fast, trying to overwhelm the audience, virtually like jump scares, trying to prolong jump scares. And it just doesn't work because Tim Curry was scary because of his performance, and you had time to really fear the character or be fascinated by the character. This one, they have a couple of moments where he kind of talks. There's a part where you see him charm a girl who at first is like, I'm not going anywhere near, exactly what I said the other night. No kid is going to look at this clown in a drain and be like, oh, I'll talk to no, they would run. This girl, she's like, yeah, no, sorry. And then he starts talking to her. She has a birthmark on her face, and they're smart enough also to make her a character earlier in the film, so we're already attached to her a little bit. We sort of know who this character is. She's not just a random kid, although she's kind of random. But and he used that to say, oh, yes, I'm scary, yes, I'm ugly, and people don't like me for that. And of course, she's like, well, people don't like me for my birthmark, and that's how he draws her in. It's a little bit cleverer, a little bit more creepy, but still not Tim Curry. So the film, I guess, ultimately fails because it doesn't really scare. I don't know if it's going to scare kids. It didn't scare me as an adult. The original did kind of scare me on some level, but not really. It was more you were interested and fascinated by the character, and he was creepy and a little scary. This one, it's just like so many horror movies, all about just too much style, too much process, too much editing, and not enough just creating good characters you care about that you are afraid for, and situations and villains that are actually disturbing or scary. So I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I saw it in the big screen. I'm glad I didn't leave it for DVD. And it's interesting, and the play with fantasy was interesting, like Nightmare on Elm Street, but this wasn't Nightmare on Elm Street. It's supposed to be it. So I'm not really happy. I understand that the second movie isn't making as much money as the first, and I understand why. I think people already felt like they had the first story. We've already heard it, and the second one was just not unnecessary, but the way they told it and the extra stories within the story were unnecessary. And I think I've gone over that many, many times and made that really, really clear. I wasn't planning to make a 15-minute video. I was thinking maybe 5 or 10, but I always manage to talk longer because I get interested in the stuff and I just can't stop. So sorry about that. If you actually watched the whole thing, which I doubt anyone ever will. But either way, it's there if you want. When you're looking at it reviews, mine's an option. But I'll watch them both again on video. I'm going to watch the original tomorrow, just to refresh my memory, and I'm going to listen to the audiobook of the original novel and sort of just to make sure I'm being fair on the film, I really sort of need to see how the other versions were done and get a little reminder. So I'm going to leave that there, and thanks for listening if you did, and if you enjoyed the film, I'm happy for you. I enjoyed it, but I found problems and was disappointed with those elements not working. They could have done a lot better. I expect a bit more, and a lot of these remakes just seem a bit unnecessary. If you can't make it better, I don't see the point, but it's all about money. Okay, I'm gonna go. Thanks. Bye.